Burnout isn't just being tired. It comes in stages. Ignore them and you stay stuck in a cycle. I've personally hit the wall as a high performer 3 times, and each one of these experiences taught me significantly different. In this video, we're going to be reviewing what burnout actually is, the stages you go through, and some recovery approaches to come back strong. Hi, everyone. My name is Paris Stu. They call me P2. I am a nutrition and fitness coach, and I've been doing this work for over a decade. I've had the displeasure of having an unfortunate teacher in burnout, which impacted me in coaching, in professional life, and personal life, and in sport. And that's why I really wanted to make this particular video. It comes from personal experience. This video, though, isn't just for athletes. It's really dedicated for anyone who is a goal getter, who's ambitious and driven and pursuing excellence. But of course, when it comes to athletes, they do feel it a bit differently when the training piles up. There's a lot of physical consequences, and you may not just be tired, but you're burned out from your sport. Okay. The thing is, problem here is that I feel like I'm talking to myself and directly to a lot of people who I admire. I know a lot of these people are hard workers with a strong work ethic, really ambitious, really driven, and, going for it, which is commendable, inspiring, and fantastic. Well, on the flip side of that ambition comes, thinking that resting or recovery is being lazy or it's seen as weakness, which is not true. We don't have to earn our rest. We can just exist. Fortunately, that is a narrative that I 100% related to. Maybe you do as well. If you do, let me know. Comment below. Burnout is nothing you've done wrong. It's not a weakness. It's just really your body pulling the emergency brake after you have ignored the engine light for a while. If you have just driven around your car and then the engine light comes on and you're like, oh, I see it. We'll deal with that on Thursday. Or, I can drive around a few more kilometers, and maybe you can, maybe you can't. But who's to say? There's some things that could really impact it. And essentially, if you are experiencing burnout and you don't address it, nothing changes. You're just going to kind of run into that wall over and over again. Obvious disclaimer, but I'm going to make it anyway. I am not a medical professional, and everything that I'm talking about in this video is based on personal experience. If burnout is affecting your health or your quality of life, please stop and go seek professional support. And I will share where I did that later in this video. Okay, so let's talk about what burnout actually is, so we're all on the same page. Burnout is technically not a medical diagnosis, but the World Health Organization categorizes it as a syndrome and is classified as an occupational phenomenon from chronic unmanaged workplace stress. And when it comes to athletes, technically, training in your sport is your workplace. And for everybody, as humans, it shows up in various stages. So that's where we're going to dive into right now. While I was preparing for this, there were some inaccuracies, like some sources show different stages, but just for the purposes of this video and the context, we're going to go through with 3 stages. So the first stage is exhaustion. You're depleted, but you're still pushing. You have a little bit of stress, but it's still manageable. Your recovery's starting to go down, but you're grinding on. Pause for 1 second before I move on to the next stages. I'm not talking about exhaustion as in, oh, I'm tired, or I did a lot today, or it was a hard day. Exhaustion, this is when it starts to compound. Not if you had a weird night's sleep and one day you were tired. This is when you're really, really exhausted and it's been a few weeks or however amount of time and nothing, you can't fix it. Stage number 2, cynicism. This is when you start to resent what you used to love. So whether it is your work, whether it is your career, whether it is your sport, it's like it stops being motivating. You don't have the same relationship with it that you do. You're becoming cynical. There's a shift in your attitude and in your mood. There's a shift in your personal relationships and how you're interacting with other people. And then the next stage is reduced efficacy, where you keep trying, but your results go down. Like you're not getting better at it. Your chronic stress has now compounded. It went from acute stress that we can manage as humans, because that is the human experience. But the chronic stress just starts to wreak havoc. So you get some disruption in your hormones can actually be impacted. Maybe your immune system is really, really affected. And your literal cognition starts to change. You might become more forgetful, or like your brain chemistry changes from the amount of stress, to my understanding. So to recap, exhaustion, cynicism, reduce efficacy. Now, also, we need to know is that burnout has different subtypes. And it adds a little bit more clarity about what we're experiencing. And it's important to recognize so that we could seek the appropriate recovery approach, because they're not always the same. So we have 4 subtypes. We got frenetic burnout, which is you're overwhelmed and overloaded. Too much. You're just doing too much past your capacity. Under challenged burnout, it means that you're bored and disengaged. Worn out, you're just completely checked out. That one is not necessarily the same thing as being overwhelmed. You're just worn out. And then you're misaligned, which means that your values don't fit, like you're just moving different directions. And so where it comes to the recovery, a frenetic burnout will require some priority shifting and some boundary setting. You just start saying no to more things, and you're trying to, take on less so you can manage what's on your plate. Under challenged burnout does not solve itself that way. It's actually about seeking more interest and novelty. Obviously, worn out requires rest and then some. And then you have the misaligned, which you can't nap away. If you are misaligned and you're going opposite direction of what you're doing, it's the change itself and having some hard conversations, making some hard decisions that are going to help you recover from that particular type of burnout. Because when you come back from whatever you're doing, you're still going that direction. Just fascinating. This is one of the reasons, too, my understanding that burnout can just linger. It could be a few days, weeks, months, even years, like a decade for certain situations, because essentially your nervous system has learned a pattern. Now, if you don't do something to rewire that pattern, the pattern continues. And it might not necessarily match your current environment. So what I mean is if you were burned out like 5 years ago, but now you have a different job and moved, it might feel like disconnect, like what in the world? But it's like your body hadn't adjusted the way it was responding to whatever was 5 years ago. And this is where the intention is necessary for you to actively recover from burnout. And also, much like everything else in wellness and healing isn't linear. You can have some great days and then you can crash. And again, that's not speaking to anything you've done wrong. It's not speaking to us being broken or failing at this. It's not linear. It just is. Okay. All right. Now, one more thing before I share some personal stories. We need to know about the warning signs. What are they? How do we know if we have them? Everything we talk about always on this channel is going to be looking at things from all sides of a human. We have three areas. Physical. Some of the symptoms are you have chronic fatigue. You're so tired. Everything's tired. You're getting sick all of the time. Your immune system, suppressed. Maybe you have more issues with your digestion. There's a lot of gastro. That could be some of the examples of physical. There could be a lot more. Okay. Emotional. You're having a hard time regulating. So there's mood dysregulation. You're detached, you're irritable. Extremes, we're hysterically laughing and then aggressively crying. I've 100%. And then you have the cognition. So that there might be brain fog, like decision making might be challenged. It's just hard to make decisions. There's this overwhelming dread of this doom, this cloud of doom. I'm not laughing because it's funny. It's just, ha 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 ha. Yes. So we got the physical, emotional, and cognitive. Those are some of the symptoms to look for. And then as athletes, also, it's what was an outlet? So of course, training is incredible. More people need to be physically active, but it's also an outlet for a lot of us, whether you're amateur, recreational, professional. It's very unfortunate when this outlet becomes the enemy. What do you turn to for your outlet? Because you're starting to sort of hate the sport that you loved so much. It's like you're dreading it, which is very interesting. Very curious about that. If you're a sports psychologist and you have more about that, please feel free to reach out or comment below. I want to expand more on that. Okay. Now, I just want to share some personal stories, and then we're going to come back to talking about what to do to rebuild. Okay, so I mentioned that I've gone through 3 burnouts. And yeah, one of them was work. It was very early before I started coaching. I just knew that I was going a different direction. I was starting to lead a double life. That was in a previous video of why I left my former job to get into coaching. You can watch that. But where I wanted to tie it in was actually a very recent experience. So last year, I was in Southeast Asia. I left for Thailand and then I was in Vietnam. And I was in Vietnam where I hit this wall that I didn't really see coming. I was really excited. I'm traveling. It's what brings me the most joy. And I'm just in new places. There's novelty, there's adventure, trying great new foods, exploring places and going to gyms, like all of the wonderful things that make me really happy. But I recall that there was a solid 6 days that I didn't leave this loft I was staying at. And like, if I die here, like nobody would know. I should exit. I'm like, did you what? And I remember reaching out to my naturopath back in Canada. And then he was like, P2, got it, you're burned out. And I'm like, no. What do you mean? I have all these great things going. Like, what do you mean I'm burned out now? That doesn't make any sense. And then I do realize that previous to that, like a whole year before that, my therapist has been like, hey, you didn't really process anything. You're just kind of going on. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's great. I know what I'm doing. Spoiler alert. So basically, I was just dealing with things, processing things that I thought I had from years prior. And yeah, it was great because there was no distractions and I was by myself. So it was like, well, you're just here and you're going to deal with it and you're going to heal through it. And my body was definitely stressed and it started to come up physically. So I had spoken about having a lot of staph infections while I was gone, but it's like people get staph, but mine just kept coming back. Like I had so many. It was because honestly, my system was stressed. My immune system was compromised. I definitely had digestive issues. There was multiple rounds of antibiotics and I was quite emotional. And I also that's when my Achilles started to hurt. And I've spoken about this, but it was very interesting because the Achilles just kept compounding and it got worse and worse and worse until I had severe inflammation in both of them. And looking back, it's not that my training volume changed that significantly. Or sure, I was in a different continent and different countries, but like a lot of the things I was doing were things that are part of my normal habits. And to be perfectly frank, the essence of a lot of it wasn't, oh, there's a new bacteria. Like, sure, everyone, you get Bali belly or you get some form of bacteria if you've gone somewhere new that you've never been before. Sure, there's an adjustment period, but mine just kept compounding for months and like a year. And I kept wanting to fix it by just doing more Muay Thai or wanting to run or just like nothing was really moving me forward. And then I was getting more frustrated because there's like all the reasons that it should. This is everything I've ever wanted. So I was having a little identity crisis again. It's like, is this what you wanted? What are you doing? Who do you think you are? What are you doing? And yeah, this making content and YouTube videos is like a long time in the making because that's sort of what I set out to do a long time ago. But I couldn't even hold my composure to sit here and have a conversation with you. That was that. So I did my rebuilding. I'm back in Canada. There's a whole bunch of things I implemented. And right now I feel great. And I think I can genuinely say for the first time in an extremely long time that I feel like myself and I'm very motivated and very focused. Whereas I was this like weird apathetic version, which was scaring me because I am very ambitious and I'm very animated and I'm weirdly, obnoxiously optimistic. So for me to become apathetic and have this sense of dread was actually terrifying for me. That was the part that I was like, yeah, no, 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 no. I'm very happy. And here we are. So hopefully you related to that. And if you didn't, I'm grateful. But let's go on about what we can do about it. Okay. What do we do? Lower the damn bar. I know. That's mind boggling because we're all taught to, reach for the stars, like raise the ceiling. All of this is true, but you can get there if you're burned out and you can do basic shit. So lower the bar. And, this is the prime time to give that example of the tortoise and hare story that we all knew as kids. Like, it's true. There's some things that need speed, but if you are going through burnout and you're not well, lower the bar and just like chip away at it within the capacity that you have because that shifts. Start with the super basic foundations, like we know this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, foundations, being a human, whatever. It's like number one, obviously nutrition. I'm not going to dive into the calories and macros and BMR and all that in this episode, in this video. I'm just going to keep it really simple. Eat simply. Have 3 balanced meals. Try to make them like as nutrient dense as possible. And I understand that appetite is sometimes an issue. It goes either direction. Like some people have their appetite suppressed when they're really stressed, and some people stress eat. But essentially, we're just trying to find some normalcy. Hey, did I have breakfast? Did I have lunch? Did I have dinner? Was there carbs? Was there fat? Was there protein? Because our brain needs fuel and we can't move forward if we're amplifying some of the other things that we're struggling with. And if you were to watch the red flag video that was my previous video, a lot of those red flags are just amplified. So eat enough, focus on basic nutrition, sleep. Now, I understand that part of this is privilege. If you're working, you can't just like take naps all day, but it's to prioritize it when you can. Do the best you can with your sleep hygiene, control your environment as much as possible. And if you are able to nap, nap. It's okay. There's a reason your body needs it. And then obviously stress management, stress regulation. Again, this isn't like, okay, just don't stress. Well, thanks. But it is to manage the stress bucket. So I've mentioned this before, but in the stress bucket, you have all of these variables that you put into the bucket, and the bucket's just getting heavy and overwhelming. So what can you do about it? Produce the things in it. So perhaps it is outsourcing, perhaps it is asking other people, seeking help, saying no to a bunch of things, and just minimizing what you say yes to, and focusing also on active stress management like breath work, therapy, movement, obviously, all of that. Okay. So number one, foundation, nutrition, sleep, stress regulation. Then just figure out which one of the subtypes of the burnout you're dealing with. So just to review those, that's frenetic, under challenged, worn out, or misaligned. Why? Because if you were under challenged, you can't nap it away. You need to make some choices and be stimulated and have some novelty, something new. And if you're misaligned, hard conversations, hard decisions, where you're basically trying to realign yourself with your goals and your values. And this could be, in the office, this could be personal, this could be relationships, this could be environmental, this could be sport, this could be teams, whatever your situation. So speaking of teams, a little bit more about the athletes. I'm speaking to the athletes that have, the ambition and the drive. Like that is fantastic. This is why you have accomplished what you've accomplished. But also, recovery is important. There's not that no pain, no gain, taking a day off, like go rest. If you're burned out and you just take a day off and you're like, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm good. And then you go back, you might not be, you might actually have the opposite happen where now you crash even more. What's really important is to do it in layers, do it in steps. There is a thing called return to sport terminology when you're coming back from an injury or concussion. There's steps that is followed by a professional. So your physio or your athletic therapist is taking you through stages. You're not just like, yeah, cool, I'm just going to hop back up and pick up where I left off. Like you have to rebuild your physical and your mental capacity. Your strength builds back up, endurance builds back up, speed builds back up, technique builds back up. You just have to meet yourself where you're at and have the patience and the compassion to keep showing up to match your new capacity. As you do that, your confidence starts to grow, and then you start to be like, yeah, okay, I've been here before. I know what I'm doing. And then you start to up the intensity. Then you start to up the volume. Then you start to, perhaps get into competition stages if you used to compete. But if you're coming back from an injury or a burnout, it's similar. Essentially, the point is to know you're not weak, you're a human being, and you're matching yourself at your current capacity, which shifts. And this is where the spoon theory, if you've heard of it, it's like how many spoons you have to use every day. Maybe you just start the day off with less spoons, but you've given all you got. So if you start one day with 5 spoons and you gave your 5 spoons by the end of the day, you had no more spoons left to give. But the next day, maybe you started with 10 spoons and then you give all 10 spoons away. You can give spoons you don't have, which just matching your capacity. And then really notice that false recovery trap when you're like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, no problem. But you jump back in at full intensity after a few days off, but you actually just re-trigger a new cycle. Just because you took a couple of days off doesn't mean that you were at baseline or where you needed to be. All of this that we're doing, my goal always is for it to be sustainable and for us to keep doing it. If you were burned out and it's possible for you to take time out, if there is opportunity for you to take medical leave at work, if it's possible for you to have some hard conversations, do everything you need to do so that you could take care of yourself, to enjoy your environment, to be with people that support you, and to rebuild also joy. Like if you were burned out and you started to hate your work or your sport, that's no way to live. Maybe we're not in love with everything, but I think joy is a good qualitative marker. Okay, so the next steps that I suggest and what to do is just sort of bringing through everything we talked about together is number one, recognize what stage of burnout you're in, whether it's exhaustion, cynicism, or reduced efficacy, because you can do something about it. The earlier you recognize it, great. The faster you can implement some recovery tools and move on. Then determine your subtype, again, frenetic, underchallenged, worn out, or misaligned. And then start to choose what your priority is for the week. You don't have to do them all at the same time. This isn't like a massive checklist. You're not getting a gold star. It's about taking care of yourself. So is it prioritizing your sleep? Is it eating lunch every day? Is it starting your morning with 5 minutes of meditation and breathing? Something really simple. And then if there's other interventions that are necessary, do you need specific supplements? Make sure you speak to a qualified practitioner. Even though burnout and depression and anxiety are not the same thing, perhaps one is just exasperating the other. In that case, perhaps you need medication. So obviously seek a professional support. Make sure that you are reaching out to your network. And if you don't have one, start cultivating them. I highly, highly encourage making a little wellness team for yourself. I'm incredibly grateful for my medical doctor, for my naturopathic doctor, for my therapist, for my close-knit friends, for family. I highly encourage creating a little wellness team around you. It's okay to reach out for help, and please do. Believe me. And I mentioned earlier, I forgot to say it, but lower the bar, call it the non-negotiables. What I mean by that is when at your worst days, you can do them. So like the bar is really low. Look, hey, I showered, I put on pants, I drank some water, which may seem very far-fetched if you're a high performer, high achiever, but better to do the absolute bare minimum and be able to build on it versus do nothing and then try to have one perfect day where you do everything. It's just like less is more, do it every day. And then what I also recommend is sort of make it a normal habit to assess. For example, weekly check-ins, reflect on the week, reflect on the month, notice like where are your energy levels? Where's your motivation at? What's going well? What's not going well? Recognize the performance markers that you're tracking that may be relevant to you and go seek out support as you're noticing the changes when you're doing like your check-ins, whether it's weekly or monthly. Now, if you recognize yourself in some of the symptoms and the experiences that I shared, please comment below. And if you are an athlete that's trying to get some support and build your foundation in the nutrition and mindset, of course, that's what I do. So please check out how to work with me one-on-one, as well as the Level Up Method cohort, which is all about having that teamwork about nutrition and mindset with athletes. To wrap up this really long video, burnout taught me a lot. And what it really taught me is to work with myself, not against it, which may seem like duh, but no. I can look back and realize that I wasn't really being my own teammate. It's not that you don't want to push yourself or demand excellence or demand better. That's, in my opinion, the whole objective. Let's grow. But you also do have to meet yourself where you're at. If you're constantly going way out of your capacity, that's just really demoralizing and you're just going to crash and burn. The other big lesson was that it's a pattern. And if you do not interrupt that pattern, it's going to keep going. So like how you manage stress regulation does require active intention. And one huge thing, you are not your performance. You're a human being who performs. It is perfectly okay to have days that you're just sitting there reading, days that you're staring at the wall, days that you haven't accomplished everything. And I understand that's a bit challenging if you are a performer that is climbing the corporate ladder. Of course, there's work to be done. But whether it's your sport, whether it's your career, all of those things are just one aspect of who you are as a human being. We're multifaceted, multidimensional beings, and we're defined by more than just one thing. And you can actually be stronger if you've addressed the causes, addressed the patterns, and learned from them also. Like, there is truth that there are some things completely out of our control. Everyone has something. Right now, we hear the word trauma a lot, which is not in my scope, but I'm just referencing it because the human experience is challenging, but we're also really capable and resilient, and we're able to build. And it's just not giving up, having incredible hope, and continuing to build, and know that you can actually rebuild stronger. So if just because you took some time away doesn't mean you're going to not catch up. If anything, you can surpass because you took that time to rest, to recover, and do whatever you needed to do. Yeah. Thank you so much for all of your attention. This one was really loaded. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was relatable. And I would really love to hear from you. My contact details are in the description box. Comment which stage of burnout you related to the most. All right. Thank you again. Catch you next time.